Hello, hello, and thank you for joining us. That's right, this is No Soundbites Allowed, and I am your host, Michael Voss, Dragon of the Southern Tier. I am happy to be here with you today because we just heard from Joe Biden. He just had his first press conference. It's been 65 days. The public has been awaiting this for a long time. We have broken a 100-year record in the delay for Joe Biden to speak to the American public. And obviously, people wanted to hear what he had to say about coronavirus. People wanted to hear what he had to say about gun control. People wanted to hear about what's going on with the southern border and the children that are arriving there unaccompanied. People wanted to hear about what's happening in Russia after the challenge against Putin. People wanted to know, what is America doing about China, the Uyghurs who are being genocided by the Chinese government, and the bashing of the United States by China, scolding us in the most recent conversation. There were a lot of big issues that people wanted to hear about in this press conference that started late, a little after 1 o'clock, lasted for about 1 hour. I believe it was 59 minutes in total. There were several questions from the news media, and Joe Biden had a book in front of him, a notebook, to help him remember and keep up with all of the notes, because he was going to give us one of the most powerful responses possible. And I'm going to tell you what he said, because, oh my God. Now, if this is the first time that you've been able to see the show, we thank you for joining us. And you are able to speak to us on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and to call into the show at 607-242-1582. And we don't normally do the live shows during the week, but I do want to do this because I don't trust that the information that was provided to the American people is going to be relayed later on today by the major news media. I don't believe that we're going to be able to see what was actually said and what actually happened. So let me go over this, because, oh my God, we got nothing. It was one of the least energetic appearances of a president at a press conference than I can recall. It was one of the least detailed conversations that a president has had at a press conference with the public. And he had a book of notes. And my God, there's two things in this press conference that I want to show you that is insane. Now, I do see Vic has joined us, and hello, Vic. It's very good to have you here. When Republicans held the majority in both houses, Democrats used the filibuster on every single vote and confirmation, saying that it was a vital tool for the Senate to have, because it would ensure a safeguard of our democracy and keep us safe from the evils of republicanism. Now they have a small majority, not even close enough to be even fathomed as a mandate, and they want to destroy the filibuster because it's racist of all deceitful things. What a crock. Well, I want to tell you, and I understand, and really, Joe Biden, he didn't really deal with the mandate either, the supposed mandate that he has, or really talking about the filibuster very much, besides his support of it. Here's the thing. The things that caught me is there were two questions that stood out. There was a question about the children at the border, which we did get sort of an answer for. And there was another question, which was on gun control. Obviously, two of the biggest issues in the news for the last 2 weeks. We didn't hear about anything with Russia. We didn't hear about China. We didn't hear about the genocide that China is doing. We really didn't hear about the troops that are increasing in Syria, or the fact that we're fighting against Syria or Syrian rebels when Iran is killing American citizens. We didn't get to hear about that. Joe Biden didn't address those issues. He didn't address the increase in inflation, the 10 million people who are out of work. He didn't address the fact that we cannot continue to just give people money, the COVID relief, forever. And what are we going to do about the 10 million people who are facing eviction? No, he didn't answer any of those things. But he did talk about the border. And I have to say, it was one of the least energized conversations about a critical matter in this nation that I've heard ever before. And It's incredible to me. And maybe you think I'm wrong, folks. Maybe you think I've misunderstood. Maybe you saw something different than I saw. But, and I'm going to play it for you so we can listen to this together. But we just had Joe Biden, President of the United States, come out and say to the rest of the world, hey, send me your children. I mean, that's what he said. That's what's going to be heard across the rest of the world. In South America, in Venezuela, in Chile, where they are starving, where their government is shooting their own people, where gangs are roving through the land and lives are in danger. They heard Joe Biden say, send me your kids. I'm going to put them in a hotel. Not the homeless kids in the United States. No, we're not spending money to rent out hotels to put the homeless in the United States and homeless children in the United States in hotels. But if you send your kid from another country to the United States by themselves, we will put them in a hotel. We will give them health care. We will feed them, and then we'll let them stay. That is terrifying to me. Now, you're going to say, Mike, that's not what he said. That's not what's being reported on CNN, MSNBC. They're telling me it was a fantastic speech. Okay, let's make sure that everything is on the record here. So here is Joe Biden. This is from C-SPAN. Okay, so it's not edited. This is not something that you're going to see on MSNBC. I'm going to play this for you so you can hear it. If you want to see it for yourself, we can go to C-SPAN. It is at minute 19 minutes and 51 seconds. He is asked this question, and his answer is very important. Let's listen to this together.
I'd like to circle back to immigration, please. You just listed the reasons that people are coming, talking about in-country problems, saying that it happens every year. You blamed the last administration. Sir, I just got back last night from a reporting trip to the border where I met 9-year-old Josel, who walked here from Honduras by himself, along with another little boy. He had that phone number on him, and we were able to call his family. His mother says that she
Oh, that's not me. I didn't hit
sent
anything.
her son to this country because she believes that you are not deporting unaccompanied minors like her son. That's why she sent him alone from Honduras. So, sir, you blame the last administration, but is your messaging in saying that these children are and will be allowed to stay in this country and work their way through this process, encouraging families like Josel's to come?
Well, look, the idea that I'm going to say,
That took a while.
which I would never do,
Yeah. And again, I didn't hit anything.
an unaccompanied child ends up at the border, we're just going to let him starve to death and stay on the other side. No previous administration did that either, except Trump.
And he didn't do it
I'm not
either.
going to do it. I'm not going to do it. That's why I've asked the Vice President of the United States yesterday to be the lead person on dealing with, focusing on the fundamental reasons why people leave Honduras, Guatemala, El Salvador in the first place. It's because of earthquakes, floods. It's because of lack of food.
Again, I'm not touching anything.
It's because of gang violence. It's because of a whole range of things that when I was vice president, had the same obligation to deal with unaccompanied children. I was able to get it slowed up significantly by working with the heads of state of those communities to do things like in one of the major cities, the reason people were leaving is they couldn't walk the street because their kids were getting beat up or shot or gang violence. Well, what I was able to do is not give money to the head of state because so many are corrupt.
This is very important.
But I was able to say, okay, you need lighting in the streets to change things? I'll put the lighting in. We got a contractor. We got the type of lighting. We paid directly to the contractor, did not go through the government. And violent crime significantly was reduced in that city. Fewer people sought to leave. When this hurricane occurred, the 2 hurricanes, instead of us going down and helping
I want you
in
to
a
hear this
major
in
way so that people would not have a reason to want to leave in the first place because they didn't have housing or water or sustenance, we did nothing. We're going to do a lot in our administration. we're going to be spending that $700+ million
Not hit anything.
a year to change the life and circumstances of why people leave in the first place. That mother did not sit around on the kitchen table and say, you know, I got a great idea. Why I'm going to make sure my son gets taken care of is I'm going to put him, how old was he or she?
9. I also met a 10-year-old.
A 9-year-old. I'm going to send him on a 1,000-mile journey across the desert and up to the United States because I know Joe Biden's a nice guy.
Yes.
And he'll take care of him.
Uh-huh.
What a desperate act. Have to take. Circumstances must be horrible. So we can do something about that. That's what the vice president's going to be doing. What I did when President Obama asked me to come
Stick
and
with me,
deal.
folks.
I was in Turkey at the time. He said, you got to come home and take care of this. We put together a plan and it had an impact. And so the question here is how we go ahead and do this, what we do. There's no easy answer.
Quick follow, if I may. Do you want to see these
Go ahead.
unaccompanied minors staying in this country, or should they be deported eventually?
Well, the judgment has to be made whether or not, in this young man's case, he has a mom at home. There's an overwhelming reason why he'd be put in a plane and flown back to his mom.
Okay, so let's stop right here. And let me just address what we just heard. You just heard the President of the United States say that if you're a mom in Honduras, in Venezuela, in Chile, in any of the South American countries, any other country in the world, send your kid to America. That's what he just said. Because he said he's not going to let your kid starve. He said your kid doesn't have to worry about gangs. They don't have to worry about violence. That he's not going to turn those kids away and that he's going to keep those kids. And we know that he's spending $86 million to put those kids into hotels. That is, once they get out of the cages that were created by the Obama administration, that they are currently in overcrowded conditions where they're not able to go to get a shower, and they don't have enough food. And the COVID regulations that you and I have to live with, the social distancing, the mask or double mask wearing that you have to go through, they're not doing any of that. Those precautions have all been lifted by the CDC. These are facts. They are not questions. And we just heard Joe Biden say to the American people that he is more than happy to allow this to happen, that he's going to have them come in. He said that, yeah, it's a terrible thing in other countries. And that the answer is, America, your money, your taxes should be spent for those countries to fix their countries. He wants to take your money and he wants to fix Honduras. He wants to fix Venezuela. He wants to fix Chile because that'll keep them there. If it was that simple and if that's all it took, why didn't he do it with the Obama administration? He was the one in charge, as he just said. If it was such a great plan and it was so easy to answer, then why didn't he do it when he had 8 years to do it? Not 4, 8 years. And Obama was all behind it, and he was the one who was put in charge. I understand he's putting Kamala Harris in charge now, but we have to look at this from the honest answer because you're not hearing this in the news media. And that's why I played this in context so you could hear. I'm not making this up. I'm not taking him out of context. He just told you that. By the way, let's also answer something else. The President of the United States just approved parents who are abusing their children. He is okay with that. He did not rebuke the parents of these countries that are in trouble and did not rebuke these people for sending a 9-year-old boy 1,000 miles across land by himself, surrounded by drug cartels, surrounded by sex slavers, sent him by himself to the border of the United States. And you have to ask me, is that not child abuse? Because if you try to do anything like that, there are children in New York City that can't go to the store without their parents being charged with child abuse. And you're telling me that this parent sent their child 1,000 miles. I understand the desperation that that must be. And the president of the United States didn't bother to say, hey, you know, that's child abuse. We have to stop this because it's abusive to the children. This is not the way to enter America. Do not let your children come to America by themselves. Wouldn't that be the responsible thing to say? Wouldn't we expect our president to make that statement to the world to protect the children? Isn't that his concern? Don't send your kids alone. There are dangerous people on those roads. Those kids don't have food. That's why you sent them in the first place. They don't have food for a 1,000-mile trip. They don't have clothing for a 1,000-mile trip. They don't have supervision for a 1,000-mile trip. You don't know who's going to do what to that child. And I have to ask the question, Mr. President, why didn't you mention anything about that? Joe Biden, why didn't you say anything about that? Instead, you said everything that would make someone send that kid 1,000 miles by himself or herself. Because that's what the parents are hearing. You're not going to turn away that child. That you're going to allow that child to come into this country. You're going to feed them. You're going to put them in a hotel. That's what they're hearing. That's the conversation they're going to be having and are having right this moment across the rest of the world. Joe Biden's a nice guy. He's going to take my kids in. My kid will live a better life. These are all wonderful things. But you're also abusing your child. What kind of horrors are these children going through in a 1,000-mile trip with a bunch of strangers through some of these places they have to travel through are not the best places in the world. We're talking about, depending on where you are, you have to go through places like Venezuela where the government's going to kill you. You have countries like, well, let's talk about Mexico, where they're trying to beat down some of these migrants, these people on these caravans coming through to try and stop them from coming into their country. And who knows what drug cartel or sex slaver is grabbing up how many of these children will never make it to the American border. And President and Biden is saying, oh no, send more. It's okay. They're sending them because the other countries are in bad shape and America is in good shape. And so they're sending their kids. Perfectly logical. Then tell them to stop. Don't invite them. Don't tell them that you're going to give them citizenship. You're creating a path to citizenship, that you're opening the doors and that our border doesn't matter. This should be simple. Okay, you can be a progressive if you want to be. You could say that you want to try and get citizenship for the illegal aliens, the 27 million illegal aliens in the United States right now. I don't agree with that, but that's one statement. It's an entirely different statement to say, and we're going to keep the border open, and we're not going to let the wall be there. We're going to stop building the wall. We're going to make it easy for people to come into this nation, and we won't get rid of them when they get here. Even though they have violated our law, they broke the law and they're endangering the lives of children. That's a crime in the United States. Dahlgren mentions the only way to truly help those in desperation in other countries is to lend education and knowledge to that population and encourage the population to seek their freedom while condemning tyranny. Well, you notice you didn't hear him condemn any of the tyranny that we see happening in South America and around the world. He didn't mention that people should rise up and to try and get a more democratic solution in their own countries, that they should fix their own countries. He didn't say that. He said, well, we'll take your kids and we will feed your kids and we will put your kids in a hotel. He did say he's going to give money to these countries, your money, so that you can fix Honduras. Well, if I remember correctly, there's a bunch of states and cities in the United States right now that are in need. You know, that's why we just gave $12 billion to New York State. That's why we have some 30% of all of our small businesses have closed forever. We have another 40% of all small businesses are in danger of closing within the next 6 months. And that's after we have 2 $1.9 trillion COVID relief bills that have been passed. This is dangerous. And by the way, if we're talking about excitement, and there's none of that from Joe Biden. That was one of the most boring answers I've ever heard to a really serious issue that is very involved. And he just didn't bother. Perhaps you think I'm wrong. And again, you can call into the show, 607-242-1582. You can tell me I'm wrong. You can type in, just like you see that Vic has done, Redacted has done, Dal has done, and Christina has done. Hello, Christina. I know, and no one expected me to be on right now. I'm doing this off the fly, but I think it's important because that's not going to be covered. What you just heard here is not, and the commentary about it is not going to be expressed on CNN, MSNBC, CNBC. They're not going to tell you and say, Joe Biden has just encouraged child abuse, and that to send these kids is abusive, and that we should stop this from happening around the world. Dal mentions, right, just another indication that he wants to increase the serf class in the United States. He wants the kids to raise them as dependent menial slave labor. Christina mentions, you are correct. And yes, it is important. It is very important. And why he's not saying this, I cannot understand. And I played it in full context. Yes, it was long, but you understood the question. The reporter was at the border, was speaking to the mother who was in Honduras. The kid traveled 1,000 miles by themselves. How can we not say that is abusive? His answer should have been, yes, I understand that the mother was desperate, but that was abusive. Please don't do that to your children. How hard is it to say that? Is that an insensitive thing to say? That please don't do this to your child. It's endangering their lives. Please don't do that. We will find another way. America is here to help you. If he could say that, that would be unifying. That would be something that I don't know anyone who would say, oh, we can't do that. Now, mind you, how much money are we going to give to these other countries? I don't know. But I would say, but I don't want children to be sitting in cages at the border as they are right now. So much so that Joe Biden will not allow the news media to go and show you that the only person who's been able to get the messages out is one member of Congress and James O'Keefe with Project Veritas. That's the only way we found out that these kids are in cages in overcrowded conditions with not enough food and not able to shower. And that's the only reason why they got $86 million to put them in hotel rooms. And the answer to that is don't send your kids. Keep them in your country, and we will try to help your country become a better country. That's not insensitive. That's not heartless. That is the best thing. Keep your family together, stay in your country, and make it a better country. I don't know. I don't understand. And no one will say this to the president. No one will say this about the president. No one will point out that he is now advocating for child abuse, because that's what that is. So I wanted to highlight that for you. And by the way, if you were wondering, when I said that Joe Biden has denied the news media the ability to go in and to find out, it's at, and this is on C-SPAN for you to see. This is where I'm getting this. I watched the entire report, and then I'm looking at it again. I've watched it twice now. On C-SPAN at 27 minutes and 27:57. 27:57. The question is asked of the president. Thank you very much, Mr. President. Given the conditions that were, well, actually, I'll just let them say it themselves, if this will play. And I don't think you're going to hear this yet.
Kristen.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Given the conditions that were just laid out at the migrant facilities at the U.S. border, will you commit to allowing journalists to have access to the facilities that are overcrowded moving forward?
I will commit when my plan very shortly is underway to let you have access to not just them, but to other facilities as well.
So the answer is no. The president, Joe Biden, just said he is not going to give access to the news media to show you what is actually happening. He is not going to tell you what's happening. He wants to hide this from the American people. You can go down there once my plan is in. Once I fixed it so it doesn't look like it is, so you don't see the reality, that's when I'll let you go down. I'll let you go down after we remove the kids from the cages that they're in, after we've given them showers and fed them, then we'll let you go and see it. That's not transparency. Why is he not being called out? Why is CNN? Why is MSNBC, ABC, CBS? She was working for NBC. Why did she not follow up that question, which she didn't, and say, Mr. President, this isn't transparent. Why can't we go there now and see the conditions the kids are in now? Not wait for your plan. We understand. You eventually will have a plan, but what is the condition right now? Why can't we see that? Our tax dollars are paying for it. You're going to spend $86 million of our taxes to get these kids into hotels. Show me how they're living right now. You want to get that $86 million? Maybe you get $120 million once the American people can see the conditions the kids are in and say, oh my God, I don't want kids to live like that. I don't think anyone should be in a cage. It's the same thing you just told us for the last 4 years. Kids should not be in cages. Mr. President, take them out of the cages you just put them in. Give those kids a shower. Give them some food. And yes, you can take my tax dollars to pay for a hotel to do that because the American people are compassionate. But you just heard, again, unedited from C-SPAN, the question and the answer. And the answer is, no, you don't get to see that. You don't get to see that Joe Biden is not doing what he promised you, that the Democratic Party is not doing what they promised you. The very thing that they drilled into your head was happening for 4 years and didn't happen is happening right now, and they don't want you to see it because they don't want to have to deal with the backlash. They don't want to have to deal with it. That is so disingenuous. That is so wrong. That is wrong. And he is not being called out for that. The news media are telling you how wonderful this press conference was after 65 days, the longest amount of time anyone's gone without a press conference in 100 years. And the answer we're getting is no transparency. Send your kids to America. This is not what we would expect from any president. And this is supposed to be the highlight. This is our hope for the future. This is the hope and change 2.0. Maybe you think I'm wrong. Please, if you think I am wrong, tell me where I am misunderstanding the words that you are hearing right now. Please explain to me how these policies and the lack of transparency is a good thing, or that it is opposite of what he promised on the, or how it is not opposite of what he promised on the campaign trail just 6 months ago. And please tell me why we shouldn't hold anyone who holds the office of the presidency to that standard, that this is what you said, you're lying to the people, and you need to do better. Because if we don't hold them accountable, they will never be accountable. And you're not going to see that in the nightly news tonight. They're going to spend 30 seconds. They're going to give you 1 or 2 highlights, and they are definitely not going to tell you that Joe Biden is asking for child abuse, that he is approving of child abuse, and that he is not willing to show you how the kids are continuing to be abused in the United States right now. No, he wants to tell you about it afterwards. By the way, Dal, you mentioned it sounds like Willowbrook. I'm not familiar with Willowbrook. What's that reference to? So I think it's very important. And that's why I'm doing this live right now, because I want to get this out to you as soon as possible. You can look back on it later at your leisure. Compare this conversation I'm having with you right now with your nightly news. I don't care what you watch. You can watch MSNBC, CNN, ABC, CBS. You pick the channel. I don't care where it is. I want you to compare that news you're going to be seeing and this commentary right now. And I guarantee you, you aren't going to hear them say what I've said right now, which is directly in consequence from what Joe Biden has said. Joe Biden said these things, and this is the consequence of it. And I'm telling you so that you know where your tax dollars are going, so that you know what your senators and your congressmen are voting for and what's going to be happening in this nation. Because they're doing it in your name. This is being done in your name, and the rest of the world is watching. You know they are watching right now. And there are kids, parents right now, like in Venezuela, like in North Korea, like in, the Middle East, all over it. And there are parents who are saying, gee, do I leave my kid in this horrible nation, or this badly run nation, let's say it like that, where they're starving, there are roving bands of gangs and military guerrillas and warfare going on. Do I leave them here, or I can send them to America? And Joe Biden will take care of my kid. So all they have to do is make it 1,000 miles, 2,000 miles, 3,000 miles, and then they'll be safe. If they make it. I understand why the parents are sending the kids. What I don't understand is, why is Joe Biden saying, yeah, it's a great idea. I'll take your kids. I encourage you to send more. This crisis, mark my words, we are going to see an increase. If you think the crisis is bad now, with 16,000 children at our southern border right this moment, after this press conference, I would tell you that you'll probably see double, if not more than that, at our southern border before the end of April. Before the first 100 days are up, because of what Joe Biden just said. And he knows they are coming because of his administration. They are coming because of his policies and because of what he is telling the world, just like he did right now. The child abuse is okay if you send your kids to the United States. That's a problem. So some of the comments are, Dow mentions that we could hold the office holder accountable if there was actually someone at home. He can't answer questions because the policies are told to him, not involved with them. Michael Bowie mentions that what I've read is that the majority of these children are actually teenagers. Many of them are teenagers. I don't know if they are in gangs, although we can't be sure. Juan mentions it will cost $72,000 per border crosser for Biden's hotels. $72,000 currently. And that has been reported by the Epoch Times. Thank you for that, Juan. We have a problem. And again, no one else in the media is going to tell you this. No one else in the media is going to point this out to you. They are going to skip by this. They're going to tell you everything else that they can possibly tell you and completely distract you. They're not going to call out this president because they haven't been. So again, we just had a conflict between Vladimir Putin and Joe Biden. Was that question asked during the press conference? No. China just scolded America and told America that they told us that we are weak and that we are dysfunctional and that we have no right to work in a partnership with China to improve peace in the world and possibly, the ecology and all those other issues. Did that come up in this conversation? No. So again, two things that you want to know about that are important to your life are not going to be addressed at all. But there is a third thing that I found incredible. And this, if no matter what else, if you see nothing else, please share this next part. And I'm not going to play the whole thing because it's a little bit long, but I want you to share this. It was at 50 minutes and 54 seconds. You can go to C-SPAN yourself to see it. I want to play just enough so you can hear the question, and I'm going to let you hear the beginning of the answer, because you're not going to hear this on the nightly news. They're not going to be talking about this in most of the news media. They're going to avoid this because Joe Biden is not mentally there, and this is the proof. And Dal, I do see your comments. I'm going to come back to them in 1 second. But I want you to see this. This is vital for the American people to understand, because this is saying Where is our president? Is he with us on this? Does he even know what's going on? The question at 50 minutes, 54 seconds.
A leader of a country. That's what's at stake here. We got to prove democracy works.
Mr. President, sorry, I know you haven't had a chance to address the tragedies in Georgia and
From
Colorado.
Bloomberg News,
You
Justin
had said
Sink.
to stay tuned for actions that you might take on gun control. Wondering if you've made a decision either about sending the manufacturer liability bill that you had promised on day one to Capitol Hill, or executive actions like going after ghost guns or giving money to cities and states to battle gun control.
Okay, before he answers, I want to be very clear here. The question was about ghost guns, suing gun manufacturers, and to take on gun control. This is his question. Gun control, ghost guns, suing gun manufacturers. It is a very clear question based on what has just happened in Atlanta and in Boulder, Colorado. It is absolutely clear this is about the Second Amendment. It is about gun control. It is about the shootings that have just happened, that the news media has wasted no time in making sure we are very fearful of what's happening with guns in this nation. Here is the answer. 51 minutes, 22 seconds from Joe Biden himself. I'm going to begin to play it. You can listen to it yourself later on.
All the above. It's a matter of timing. As you've all observed, successful presidents better than me have been successful in large part because they know how to time what they're doing, order it, decide priorities, what needs to be done. The next major initiative is, and I'll be announcing it Friday in Pittsburgh in detail, is to rebuild the infrastructure, both physical and technological infrastructure of this country.
Okay, I'm going to stop right there. He's going to rebuild the infrastructure in our country. What does that have to do with gun control? What does that have to do with the Second Amendment? What does that have to do with the Ninth Circuit Court's decision last night, which we've already covered and you're happy to see on the show? I want to be very clear about this. The president was asked 3 questions, all of them dealing with guns, gun control, and the state of firearms in the United States, the Second Amendment. We just had the Ninth Circuit Court last night come out and try and destroy the Second Amendment. I want to be very clear about that. And I did an entire video that was out a little bit earlier today going over exactly what they said and how it's going to affect your lives and make you less safe. We have 2 weeks. We've had 2 weeks of news on mass shootings in America. There are, 563 people who have been shot in Chicago, 187 people, I believe it was, in Baltimore. We have serious issues about crime in our nation, violent crime and crime with guns. We have deranged individuals that are in our nation that have access to firearms. That's a serious question, whether you agree or disagree with the Second Amendment. I want you to understand that. And our president, just now, in being asked that very timely question with 3 different aspects of how he could have answered it, and his answer is, I'm going to build the infrastructure of our nation. He wants to talk about jobs. No wonder he sounded completely disconnected. The man lapsed. He had a mental collapse. He didn't look at he has a binder right there in front of him. He can flip the tabs, and I guarantee you, in that binder, there is a tab that says gun control, that says, mass shootings, that says the Ninth Circuit Court decision. If he has a staff that is worth anything, he has those tabs in that binder that he brought with him to make sure he could give the American people a detailed and clear answer. But apparently, this question was a question that was not approved previously, like they do, like is required when the press is speaking to the press secretary, Jen Psaki. No, this wasn't an approved question. It was a question that was asked. It was a surprise because he interrupted the president to ask this question, and Joe Biden, who was not prepared, didn't know how to answer it. He couldn't answer any part of it. Oh my God, what is wrong with our country? what is going to happen? This has me very upset. I mean, it's bad enough that we have a president who is literally advocating for child abuse, and now he can't even answer a simple question. He has no idea what to say. It is blatantly clear, and the media won't tell you about this. Let me come to the comments, and then I'm going to go on. Dow mentions that, Willowbrook was a facility in New York for the disabled and mentally handicapped individuals that was poorly funded, understaffed, and let only journalists in after making the situation better. Yes. So telling the news media that they can't go to see what's happening to the children at the border and how abusive that situation is exactly like that. Yes, it is. You can find more information on YouTube through archived footage from Geraldo, of all people. Well, yeah, he was a good reporter back in the day, in the 70s, 80s. So I'm not surprised he would cover that. Trisha, hey, it's good to see you. It was a horrible performance and totally laughable. He was like a stoned 8th grader trying to get through a book report. Yes, that's an accurate way of saying that. And I would say that's probably what it was, that he was stoned, except he happens to be a 76-year-old man who has questions about his mental capabilities throughout the entire election process of 2019 and 2020, and continues to have significant questions about his mental and physical health. This is not someone that is encouraging us. And his comments and the manner of how he's making his comments do not give me confidence that anything he's talking about is going to work anywhere near what he's thinking it will, because I don't think he knows what he's talking about. Dow mentions that the voice in his earpiece must have had no idea how to answer off script, so he was instructed to deflect to infrastructure. Maybe that is the answer. Maybe someone was feeding him answers and we just couldn't see it because the camera pointing the way it was won't let us see what's on that podium. He's not looking down as he did for many of the answers to questions that he was asked today. He was looking down at the podium. So maybe he wasn't getting a text message saying, this is what you're supposed to say right now. And he just wung it. But what he wung it on is infrastructure. My God, this is insane. Michael Bowie says, it was a softball question and Biden still whiffed. You're right. It was completely wrong. This was the easiest question he could have said in the universe. He could have given all the red meat to the progressives he wanted and say, look at what happened because of the shootings. And yes, of course, I'm going to go forward with massive gun control. And if Congress won't do it, I'm going to do it by executive order. That's all he had to say. You know what? If he had said that, I would still not have liked it. I still would say I oppose it, but at least it would make sense. It's what he's been saying on the campaign trail. It's what he was saying 2 months ago. So I would expect him to say it now. He couldn't even do that. What is this? Mind you, I do want to give some credit here, because Jennifer Jacobs, who happens to be a reporter, a senior White House reporter for Bloomberg News, and by the way, this was asked by a Bloomberg reporter, mentions that, asked about gun control, sending the manufacturer liability bill he promised on day one to Capitol Hill, or executive actions on ghost guns, or giving money to cities and states to battle gun control. Biden told them it's all, again, this is how the media is going to portray that. All the above. It's a matter of timing. And then the timing was about infrastructure. He didn't answer the question. He really didn't get into this. He talked about, you're telling me that the answer to gun control in the United States is all the above. It's a matter of timing. That's a non-answer. That means nothing. That's saying nothing. That's avoiding the question. We say, well, it's all about timing. And the thing that's next in line, the next thing that we have to focus on is infrastructure. Wait a minute. The Ninth Circuit Court just invalidated the Second Amendment, or a large portion of the Second Amendment, let me clarify. We just had 2 mass shootings that the media spent 2 weeks filling the airwaves about, demanding that we have gun control. Progressives are losing their mind, screaming how we have to pass H.R. 127, which we have done a video on. It is a horrible, horrendous bill targeting women, the poor, and people of color, to make sure that they cannot have a Second Amendment right, that they will never be able to enjoy that Second Amendment right. And we're hearing the progressives say that that's what they want. And he's talking about, well, we're going to build the infrastructure. We're going to build a road. We're going to build roads. And that will take care of gun control, because that's more important right now. More important than making the American people, whether you're for or against firearms, more secure, and let them know that they can feel safe in their homes and going out to the grocery store and traveling, that to let people know that they're safe isn't as important as making sure that you got a road. That's his priority. That's what he just said to us. Again, I will go back to, here is C-SPAN. You can see it for yourself. It is clear as day. The next major initiative is, and I will be announcing it on Friday in Pittsburgh in detail, is to rebuild the infrastructure, both physical and technological infrastructure in this country, so that we can compete and create significant numbers of really good paying jobs. That's his answer to gun control, because that's his priority. Not gun control, not dealing with the Ninth Circuit Court, not dealing with the destruction of the Second Amendment, not dealing with the mass shootings that just happened in Atlanta and in Colorado and Boulder that he won't go to. His answer is he wants to work on infrastructure. Does that make any sense whatsoever? Does it make any clarity for you whatsoever? And the news media isn't talking about this. Nobody wants to talk about this in the news media. I'll show you. Again, this is Twitter. This is live. Right now, live on Twitter. Watch, let's go together and look at the blue checks on Twitter. These are the people who are going to get on the news later tonight. They're going to spend 30 seconds, maybe a minute and a half, telling you what Biden said today. They're going to tell you about his answer on gun control, and they're going to say, I'm going to do all the above, which isn't an answer, because his answer is, I'm going to fix the roads. That's what he said. That's his priority. I just read it to you from C-SPAN. Here's what they have to say. Here's what Twitter and the blue checks have to say to you about this. Let's see. Can we find anyone who's going to mention this? Southern border, nothing changed. It happens every year. No, it doesn't. That's a lie. That is an absolute lie. Let's see. Migrant surge. Overwhelming majority of people illegally are being sent back, except the children, which is why they're going to send more kids. Children, the border. Look at all these news stations I'm walking right past. I'm going to get to the comments in just 1 second. The border. He's going to run for re-election. Why? I don't think he's going to make it through this administration, let alone try and run for re-election. He can't answer questions now. He is advocating for child abuse now, and he thinks he's going to get re-elected. He thinks he's going to be around in 4 years. I don't see that happening. 100th day in office, and 2 million vaccinations by the end of 100 days. 200 million vaccinations, 100 million shots in the arm. There is not one person in the news media who is talking about the fact that Joe Biden has no idea what's going on with, I stand corrected, the recount, found it. Which is I don't know how large, it's some form of blue check. President Biden on whether he'll tackle gun control through executive actions in Congress, and 23 seconds. So all they got was, I'll do it all. Okay, let me ask a question. I'm going to go to the comments in a second, but I want everyone who's watching this, everyone who's thinking about this, everyone who's going to watch this on the nightly news, watching CNN right now, MSNBC, all of the news media, please let me answer your question. Is all the above an answer to anything? What does all the above mean? How does all the above affect your life? How much does all the above cost? If you can't answer those questions, you haven't answered the question, and the news media hasn't done its job because they didn't follow up, and they're not talking about it now, and they're not going to be talking about it tonight. Let me get to some of the comments. Michael Bowie mentions, does Biden really wear an earpiece? Maybe they told him not to go there yet. It's been questioned whether he's worn an earpiece before during the campaign trail at some of the debates. There was something that looked like an earpiece in his ear, and people questioned whether or not he was being told how to answer the question. So that's why, Michael, that's a pertinent question today. Dow mentions, so if people are working at really good jobs, they're not going to need a means of self-defense in absence of police. Yes, thank you for bringing this up, Dow. The very same people who are saying we need to get rid of guns, that you don't have a right to defend yourself outside your home. You walk outside your door, you no longer have a right to protect yourself. That's what the Ninth Court said. That's what progressives are saying. They're also saying that you don't have a right to own a firearm unless the government says it's okay. That's H.R. 127 by Representative Sheila Jackson Lee. Please, if you don't believe me, look it up. I've done the research. I've done the videos on it. And if you think I'm wrong on that, please look it up, because I'm 100% correct. And I dare the news media to sue me for this because I'm right. So they believe that those same people who believe you have to pay $800 worth of insurance every year to, if you are approved by the government to get a firearm to protect yourself, that protection does not extend beyond your front doorstep. And the moment you're outside that door, you have to rely on the government, meaning the police, to protect you. But here's the thing. They also want to get rid of the police. And they have been agents to try and reduce the number of police around the world. So in other words, you're not safe. You get no safety whatsoever. You're not rich enough to get bodyguards like these people do. You're not important enough to have Secret Service agents like these people do. Therefore, you get nothing. And you are at the mercy of criminals and the deranged. And by the way, if you think the answer at the least is, well, I'll get a bulletproof vest, in New York State, as well as other states, they are trying to make that illegal for everyone, so you have no protection whatsoever. That's what Joe Biden has said. If you think I'm wrong, please, you can call on 607-242-1582. If you think I'm wrong, text me, let me know what you think here, because that's what I'm hearing. That's what he has said. And this is what the news media is avoiding and not telling you. Mark Secor mentions, maybe next time he can do a presser with journalists that aren't handpicked and not know which order to call on them and not know which questions will be asked. That was a wag the dog set up kind of presser. Journalists are gone. Those were partisan activists asking the questions. There were one or two questions, I have to say, Mark, that were serious questions. And even the question that seemed to be out of the blue, that came from Bloomberg News, was a valid question. Joe Biden made promises to the American people, many, many promises. He's broken most of those promises. One of those broken promises was that on day one, he would allow people to sue gun manufacturers, which I don't agree with. I think that's a horrible idea, and I think it's stupid, and I think it's unconstitutional. Be that as it may, that was a promise he made. Here we are in the middle of what the news media is trying to tell us is some kind of epidemic, that these mass shootings are, I don't even know what they are. But they're trying to tell you should be afraid that this is happening, and it's going to keep happening. It's going to happen to you unless you pass another law besides the 22,000 laws we already have. You have to do this. You have to give the government more power. And all Joe Biden had to say to his news media that already are on board is say, hey, we are going to do this because we have to protect the people of Atlanta and Colorado and America, because we have to get rid of these guns. That's the left-leaning answer. You want to hear what the left has to say about it? The left-leaning answer is guns are the root of the problem. And if we are able to remove the guns, then we are able to reduce the amount of potential harm to American citizens. If we take these guns out of the hands of these dangerous criminals, then no one has to be worried. And law-abiding citizens have nothing to worry about because our government is here to protect us. And they will do that because our officers, our law enforcement are well-trained, and they will take care of it. That is the answer from the left. It is simple, it is straightforward, it is completely hogwash. It has nothing to do with reality, and it is completely without any effectiveness. It is toothless. He could have said that. He didn't. He said he wants to work on infrastructure. You are not a priority to Joe Biden. You are not a priority in Joe Biden's agenda. He is looking to transform America. He is doing Obama 2.0. He has an agenda. He has a plan. And on that plan, you are not included. Your safety is not included. And he just made that clear. And the news media is giving him a pass on that. They are not questioning him on that. They are not even mentioning that that happened. They are avoiding it completely. Because all the above is not an answer. If you asked Joe Biden, what are you doing about COVID? And he said, all the above, you would not accept that as an answer. If you asked Joe Biden, what is he doing about unemployment? Another subject that was not brought up in this press conference. What are you doing about unemployment? And if he said, all the above, that's not an answer. You would not be satisfied. Why are you satisfied with his answer on gun control? Unless there is a plan to do something that he knows the American people will not accept, that they will reject it completely. And if people were aware of it, they would protest, that they would go to their senators, their representatives in Congress and say, absolutely not, do not do this. And maybe he didn't want to answer it because he doesn't want you to know what's the next thing he's going to try and do. Very likely through an executive order so that you have no power to stop him. This is a terrifying thing. There is nothing positive that happened in this press conference with Joe Biden. Nothing. And I have shown you 3 things that are essential to America, that is topical, happening right now, and Joe Biden absolutely could care less. He doesn't care about you. He doesn't care about the answer there. He doesn't care that children are being abused because he's invited more children to come to America to make the crisis even worse. He's using your tax dollars to try and pass this through so that he can get a nice photo op of kids in a hotel room. And he won't let the news media report to you the truth because he knows it's going to look bad. And it shows how badly prepared, how ineffective the Biden administration is, with or without Kamala Harris, who is busy laughing at the situation at the border when being asked by reporters. You know, I'm upset about that. And maybe it's just me. I don't know. Maybe I'm just upset about nothing. I mean, it's up to you folks. You tell me. You can tell me by liking this, by sharing this, letting other people be able to see it so that they can comment, because I do want to see their comments. I want to hear the answers. I want to hear someone explain to me how I'm wrong and what I'm understanding, and to explain to you why in the nightly news tonight, they're not going to tell you about this. They're not going to go over these points with you. They're not going to explain what just happened here. And they're going to lie to you and tell you in 30 seconds to a minute and a half that this was fantastic. This was the best news you could have possibly heard, and that you waited for 65 days to hear this, and aren't you happy? I want to hear that. So please like this, share this. Subscribe, please subscribe, so more people will see this and they can add their answer, because I want to hear the other side. I want to hear everyone's answer on this. Because if I'm wrong and I'm the only one, that's okay. Tell me I'm the only one. I'll understand. And then I'll try and find out and understand, why am I the only one seeing that? Why am I the only one asking these questions? Why am I the only one expecting more from the man who's supposed to be president right now, who is pushing everything off on his vice president? And I expect more from her as well. Hey, Wheels, it's great to see you. Thank you for that. You think I'm spot on. Folks, share this. Share this with everyone you know. Let them comment on this. And most of all, ask people. And when I'm going to share this out later, I want you to ask I want you to do one important thing for me. Besides liking, besides sharing, besides subscribing, one of those 3 if you can. Here's the thing. When you watch the news tonight, please tell me if they go over anything I've just discussed. if they spend more than a minute and a half talking about this press conference, please, I want to see it in the comments. Let me know. Let me make sure that I'm not just spinning a story here, because I'm not. Let's see how honest the news media really will be. But folks, I've been on for an hour, as long as Joe Biden was, and I believe I have a lot more energy than him, and I'm only about 20 years younger than him. But that being said, I want you to have a great day. I want you to know you are the power of this nation. The country is run by we the people. The 10th Amendment is still the greatest power that you have. Our politicians answer to us. And Joe Biden must answer to us as well. And as long as we make this known that he needs to give us better answers, that he needs to step up and say, stop abusing children by sending them on 1,000-mile journeys by themselves, surrounded by drug dealers, drug cartels, and sex slavers, you know what? He has to respond if we make that known, if we put that out there. If we say, you can't tell us all the above, we need to know what you're doing to the Second Amendment. We need to know what you're going to do in terms of gun control. How are you going to affect our ability to live our lives? They have to answer if we make it known. That's what social media is here for. It's not just about the Kardashians. It's about you letting our government know that we are the power of the government. And with that said, I look forward to seeing you on our next video, or every Sunday at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, where you get to do just like now, speak to us in your text, in your calls, in your comments on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, DLive, and others. And until then, I hope you're going to be well. Thank you.